the Bible calls men to be the head of the household and also the head of his wife.
Right.
Make sure things go smoothly and things like that.
Yeah.
But hold on. I'm not done. So,
Hey guys, welcome back to 716. So I know that this setting is a little different, and I know that we haven't done anything as far as podcast related in a while. So if you're listening to us for the first time on Spotify or on Audible, welcome. This is 716. We're actually talking about the after show. Now, it requires watching something on YouTube because it's exclusive to YouTube only. And we have special guests here today because of because of the social experiment that we did on YouTube. Now, the after show, in a sense, is basically getting into a deeper dialogue of what was said. And we're going to look at some of the opinions that other people have made. Adrian isn't here with us, but actually in the frame, but she's actually right over here.
Hey!
And she's going to just be, commenting and whatnot. She's just going to be in the background for today because this is the guys only. So with us, we have Carolus, Fernell, and Abraham, and they have all said something. They have all said something worth mentioning on this podcast for today, because it got to a point where it was a little controversial at some degree with something that you said, and then on top of that, there were some things that we mentioned, and it's a typical response that somebody of the faith would actually say. So before we dive any deeper into that, because I do want to get into like comments that were said and the poll rates and everything that came up, I just want to start talking about what we're thankful for, because it's one of those segments that we always do here on our podcast. For me personally, it's being able to have you guys here, being able to do the social experiment that we did, because it's so many people were blessed by it. So many people were commenting and saying, man, we need this. We need more of this. So glory goes to God, really, because, he gives us the ability to be the artist in a sense, and to be able to produce these videos. So I can't take any of the credit. He gives me those ideas, right? But glory goes to him that he was able to process this and the right people were blessed by it. So I'm thankful for that.
Amen. One thing I'm thankful for is really just more of a realization of God's presence in my life.
Yeah.
And just thanking him and being grateful for where I'm at and not trying to rush anything and just being patient with him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For me, it's definitely, I'm thankful for God's presence, of course, being in the secret place a lot more. Also, I'm thankful just to be a part of this podcast, honestly. Like,
nice.
When one of my friends hit me up to do it, I was like, oh, wow, like, I'm excited. I was very encouraged, to be surrounded by other brothers in Christ, sharing different views or same views as well. So I'm very thankful for that.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Super thankful for this podcast as well. But I think I'm thankful for just the joy that I've been getting received lately as of lately. I feel like I've been through such a tough time throughout these months. It's been really weird for me last year. So I guess kind of experiencing first joys again feels great. Even though it doesn't feel like I deserve it sometimes, or it doesn't feel like I'm worthy of it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the little victories I can get, and just the little joys and things that I can spend time with my family, stuff like that, and just take victory in that.
Cool. Yeah, that's great, because we're all gonna have our seasons, right? But you're saying you're coming out from a season like that?
I think it's slowly coming out. I feel like it's maybe if we put it on a percentage chart, we're 80% there.
All right, cool.
So
that's awesome.
We're almost out of there, and I think it's great because I've learned a lot of hard lessons, and I think lessons that can apply to me throughout the rest of my life, man.
And I saw something on Instagram today, bro.
I wasn't expecting this.
Care to mention something? Care to mention something that that we saw that publicly came out on Instagram?
Yes, I'm in a relationship.
Yeah.
I meant to ask him that. I was like, okay, I see you.
I'm really grateful because it's for the first time that I feel super happy, and I feel like dating in your 20s is a lot different than dating when you're 14. When I had that long-term relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful, and I think one of the best advice that I received from a really good friend of mine, well, she's a really good friend of mine, is to always keep God in the center. And I think we hear that a lot, but it's like we think of like a relationship as like God first, and then it's each other. You know what I mean? And I'm so grateful for that because we've been taking that for a while, and it's been just growing, and it doesn't feel like I need to do more. I think for the first time, it's been a while where I could just be myself and not try. I think if it's a prayer that I've been asking for God, I was like, hey God, if you're gonna put somebody in my life, then I don't want to pursue. Like I don't want to go out of the way and make myself, look dumb or overextending myself. And for the first time, it was like I wasn't pursuing. Like I was getting pursued. So it was pretty awesome to feel that, and it's little by little, and I'm just like really happy.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Congratulations, bro. Congratulations. I saw her screaming out the car windows.
Abraham Ramirez is my boyfriend.
So I was like, okay, these two are happy. That was awesome. All right, so moving into what it is that we have, real quick, I just want to explain. The purpose of the social experiment was really to dive into the perspective of Christians. I mean, that was the first thing that came up, Christian perspectives. And it's because there's not enough people talking about hard topics. Mm-hmm. And although I would love to get into harder topics, simple things like, are we able to talk about our struggles with other Christians, or, things like porn addiction? A lot of Christians suffer through these things, and sometimes we suffer it alone. So for our viewers to be able to see other Christians speaking and being relatable, it's refreshing.
Right.
I got it countless times. This podcast or this social experiment was refreshing. It was great to see other Christians of the faith, and it wasn't fake. Like it was genuine responses that were actually said.
This was real Christians, because me and you were talking about this like after the whole experiment thing, when we were finished, how Jubilee, the ones who kind of started this thing, they brought like Christians.
Right.
I'm going to be heavy on these quotations because some of those Christians were not representing what God really is.
Right.
And then maybe if they even said something that was like even close to what we believe in, sound doctrine, what they call it, they probably cut it out.
Right.
They were just going for an agenda. They're pushing for it.
Right. And you could tell when you watch these videos, one, there's no way that Christians can dive into deep topics like the ones that were asked in 10 minutes. I mean, these videos were like 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
If that, I struggled so much cutting down an hour and 30 minutes of what you guys had down to 40 minutes just because of the sake of retention. But I tried to keep all the important things there, especially sound doctrine. The way that you pointed that out, because although I want to also mention that I didn't know any of them. I mean, I knew Carolus because he goes to the same church, but we never really had a true conversation for me to say, oh, I know this guy. And then our other two guests, I don't know them at all. Like I've seen you around, but you actually came from a friend of mine, EJ, who was actually in the podcast. He's probably the only person, the social experiment. He was probably the only person that I knew truly. And then everybody else was just like, it's like, oh, like I've seen you guys. Yeah. But I had no idea what was going to come out, but I'm so thankful to God that everything that was said was nothing but a blessing to the people that needed to hear it. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to go into these statements, but before we do anything, before we start talking about it, I want to emphasize on this, guys. If you don't agree with us, it's fine. I mean, we're going to have disagreements. Even in this room, we might have disagreements, but just understand there's an importance in correction, and correction is biblical to be able to receive correction. So I ask you guys, as you're watching this, have an open heart, have an open mind. If you don't believe it from us, then look it up yourself. Ask your pastor. If you don't agree with us, ask one of the leaders that you can trust, right? Because what's important is obviously to listen here and to be an open mind to receive it, but don't just take it for our words. If I say a verse here, don't just take it for what I'm saying. Go in your Bible and actually look it up. Make sure that it's actually sound doctrine. Make sure that I'm not using the words out of context. Yeah. That's how we should all be as Christians, to question and to see, is this right? Is this the real way, that the way that he's using it, is it correct? So
and
moving.
Actually, one thing I want to add to that is, like, we're on a public podcast. Like, you know, we're not perfect either. So we're going to say things that might not be like 100%. But I personally would love it if like someone who has a problem with something I say like confronts me about it.
Right.
Because I don't want to be in that era of like misunderstanding something, or maybe I said something and then like they understood it that like a wrong way.
Right.
But
Right.
I think it's important to have conversation, and I love having conversation with people because I feel like that's the only real way that two people or a group of people can really understand each other and move forward.
Right. Right. And it's a better way of just confronting somebody rather than just talking about somebody behind their back.
Right.
I mean, you could disagree, but don't bash one another.
Yeah, and it's not going to help anyone. Like if it's not going to help the person that you're talking about, they're not going to know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like counterintuitive. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Right. Okay. So with all that said, the first one that I want to bring up is
I'm okay with my date taking charge.
now the polls say 93% of the people are okay with this.
All right.
They're okay with their date taking charge, but 7% disagree. And out of those 7%, all of them were male.
Oh,
So out of the 7% guys, like it was funny because I get to see who it is.
expose them. Just tag them.
Right.
You're the problem.
No, but I do understand it to an extent because in my opinion, I would be in the somewhat disagree, neutral kind of thing.
Right.
Because I am more of a person that takes charge. And when my wife takes charge, it makes me, and it shouldn't do this, but to some degree, it makes me feel small. You get me? Because and it shouldn't be like, I don't want it to be like, oh, well, you're just insecure. No, it's just, we're in a culture where men need to be men. And sometimes that is just embedded in us. So naturally it's like, it makes me want to cringe a little bit.
Right.
Yeah,
But I do allow, my, no, exactly. I wanted to clear that out because I don't want to, this guy's insecure, just bashing me with his keyboard warriors,
Keyboard.
But it's not insecurity. It's just culture. It's norms. I studied sociology, and a lot of what surrounds you will dictate how you decide things in life,
That's very true.
Yeah. So you two, I think you were in the neutral, right?
I believe so.
I think
I'm not 100. I know you weren't. I know you agreed.
Yeah, I slightly agreed. I think
Right.
it was on slight. I think you were neutral or no?
Yeah. I can't remember for some reason. I think
Yeah.
Let's
I
go
can't
look at
Yeah.
we gotta go.
Replay.
well, for sure. I know, Carolus, you would be more on the disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more on the disagree just because
I feel like as a man, you should kind of step up a little bit and take more of like a leadership role. Even if you're in a relationship, like you should kind of take accountability because you really want to prepare for marriage.
so the Bible calls men to be the head of the household and also the head of his wife. So how are you going to be prepared to be a head of a household when you can't take charge, even in a dating relationship? Like, you should be able to make plans. You should be able to like, make
Right.
sure things go
But
smoothly and things like that.
Yeah.
But hold on. I'm not done. So I'm on the disagree because of that. But I think it's also important for a woman to be capable and be smart and wise and be able to make decisions on the spot.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's also necessary in a relationship, in a marriage as well. Can you read the statement again?
What the statement that was said?
Yeah.
I'm okay with my date taking charge.
Yeah. So I'm okay with my date taking charge is like, can you explain that further? Like, you mean like her booking a restaurant or like, what do you mean?
that's what I took
So
it as.
so
Because-
that's why we left
Yeah.
it broad.
Right.
Because we wanted it to be what was the first thing that came to your mind.
Right.
See, when I
Okay.
read this, I read it as she's telling me what to do. That's
Oh,
why
okay.
that's why I became somewhat,
Yeah,
in the
if
disagree
If
side.
it's that way, I would disagree as well.
Right.
Because I don't need a mother telling me what to do.
Right.
You know, like, you know what I mean?
She's over there cracking up, yo.
Like, it's true though. Like a
Yeah.
lot of relationships nowadays, especially modern relationships, like the woman wears the pants, for like lack of a better term or whatever.
Yeah, I see.
And that's not right. Like the man is called to lead, and if you as a woman is taking that away from him,
Yeah.
right? And you're not honoring that, and that you're not honoring that role for him that God has created him for, then you're not building him up and you're not being the helpmeet for him. So what are you doing? Like you're just taking him away from
his
yeah,
role.
from his purpose. Like
Right.
that's his God-given purpose. So-
now I do
No,
want to
you
say
laughing.
now I do want to say that this statement is, again, you know, it's for however you took it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if you took it as just in the sense of dating, it's fine. I
Yeah.
took it this way, and I also want to point out that I wasn't the one that created this. I had Melissa go through statements and bring me the statements.
Right.
So you know, I thought of it one way, maybe she thought of it another way, but yeah, that's the way I perceived it.
Okay, yeah. So I would I lean more towards like your perception of it, and also your like in just a dating sense, like that also is where I kind of leaned more, like
Yeah.
her being the like taking charge. Maybe like I wouldn't mind if like her planning something, planning an event, like whatever. Like you have to think like this relationship's it's gonna be two people. Like you can't always be like with a whip or whatever. Like you know what I mean? Like because people think that way. Like when they hear like women submit, like and they read the Bible and they find out that that's the roles. That's what they
Yeah.
think. Like they think it's some sort of abusive thing, when in reality that's not what it is at all.
Yeah.
And there's a strong calling for men to be loving, and that's like the main thing. Like love your wife, or even your prayers will be hindered.
Yeah.
Like that's not a small thing. Like, and leadership is a big mantle to carry. So like it's not, people in the world think like, oh, this role is bigger than this role because that's their worldly thinking. They think because you're the leader, because you're the provider, that you're not giving up anything. But in reality, men sacrifice their lives to provide for their family. They'll literally put themselves in front of a gunman or someone wielding a knife to protect their wife or children. Like,
Or at least they should.
yeah, or at least they should. Now society, yeah, men are kind of weak now, because I feel like a lot of men would run away. It's like crazy, because we as a Christian man, we should be prepared to die for our wife. We're supposed to love our wife like Christ loved the church and died for her. So we are supposed to be, if you really love this girl, be prepared to die for her. Like it's that level of love that that we're called to as men. It's not an oppressive or tyrant type of leadership. Like that's not true.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say Fernell was on agree.
he was on agree.
Agree.
Oh.
Abraham was on neutral.
Oh,
I was
you were
neutral.
on neutral.
That is
Okay.
surprising.
I played myself.
So you were in fact in neutral.
Yeah, I guess I was. I think it's because I didn't understand the question.
Okay.
Right? I think you took it as a way of, you know, to that extent. I took it as something simple as planning a date.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just taking role in something, you know, and going back to what I was saying earlier, right? It feels nice being pursued, right? You know, if it feels nice not doing all the work sometimes, or if it feels nice not overextending, like that word you used before. So I feel like for the first time, I'm using personal experience. It's good having things planned and you know, and things set out. And I took it in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I you know, nothing much. I didn't.
Yeah, I think if most men were to have taken it the way I take it.
Right.
Now this is coming from a married man.
Yeah.
I'm not in the dating phase. So instantly I went towards, oh, my wife's trying to take charge of me and how I do things, right? So that was kind of like an instant defense mechanism of me. But I think if every man were to have taken it the way I said, they probably would have been on the somewhat disagree or the
definitely.
I
total
think so too,
disagree.
yeah.
At least I
Yeah.
hope. I mean, at least I hope.
Yeah.
I know, man.
only hope.
Some guys nowadays that are not Christian, they love that.
Yeah, yeah.
I disagree with it. I
Yeah.
disagree with that. I think he hit some pretty important
You know
points.
why? You know why I think people love that? Because men nowadays lack responsibility. They lack accountability. It's just true. Like,
That's very true.
men are getting
Yeah, I agree with that.
men are getting weaker. And to bring up something secular, like you see the rise of Andrew Tate. Like
Yo, I was just gonna talk. I was just gonna mention it.
like, you wonder why. Like why did this guy just blow up out of nowhere? It's because men resonated with what he was saying, and I don't agree with a lot of what he said.
Yeah, yeah.
But when it came to like some things that he said about gender roles, some things like
Yeah, let's
true.
clarify. There's clarify.
And when I
because
mean
we're
gender
not
roles-
trying to get canceled
Yeah,
here.
yeah, you're right. But,
Andrew Tate, get him.
no,
know, fans.
I mean, when I say that, I'm in reference to what he said to men, like get up, like stop being lazy.
Yes, I
take
do agree.
accountability.
I do agree.
Like,
I would say the same
become
thing.
a valuable
Invest in the
man.
stock market.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, what?
What? Invest in stock market?
Invest in stock market
Oh
and
my
buy
God.
Bugattis and stuff.
Stop playing video games.
That's,
Yeah.
that's
Look it up.
unrealistic. That's unrealistic. But like just about men becoming more valuable, and
Yeah.
men nowadays don't really like care about that. You see so many guys like stuck in video games and like they don't even have a job, living with their parents,
Yeah.
never went to college, like stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you were on agree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hold on,
He
wait,
said-
wait,
he
wait,
said,
hold on,
yeah.
hold on.
He's like, yeah, but I think I want to take it back.
I was thinking about that. I do want to take it back. I'm not even gonna lie. I'll probably go more towards the neutral or probably somewhat disagree. Why? Because I feel like
Yeah, you got to tell me what your train of thought here.
I feel like it's a balance. I feel like it's a certain balance when it comes down to dating as a Christian. You know, yes, a man is called to lead. A man is the head of the household, and the woman is supposed to
Be the helper.
yeah, be the helper,
Yeah.
be the help me, and all that stuff. Yes, it's a balance. I just feel like if the woman doesn't overstep her boundary as far as taking the leadership in the relationship, then everything will work out. You feel me? Like, so there's nothing wrong. I don't have a problem with my significant other like planning a date or making certain decisions, because I'm not always gonna have the answers. You get me? So she has to be there to be able to make a decision for me, if just in case if I can't. You get me? But I just don't want her to take away from my leadership, me being the head of
I
the
see.
house.
Right.
That's all I really
Do you
want.
think that men should have the final say?
I think yes.
Oh, man, we're getting into a whole different area here.
Okay, I like
I
the
agree with
direction
that.
this is going though.
I agree with that statement. I guess it's just the way I kind of grew up with my parents and everything. I feel like we kind of should have the final say in a way, right? If it's appropriate, then I guess, you know, we're like the last ones kind of standing, how you were kind of saying before, like, hey, like we're kind of like the people who just put ourselves out there in front of our wives, you know, protect them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should have that final say when appropriate.
And
Yeah.
like you can't have
Babe, give me the definition real quick of you know what I'm asking for the helper,
Oh,
the true
Help me.
definition.
Ayudante
Yeah.
or like
so the word helper, the Hebrew word helper is azer. A helper is the same word used of God 66 times in Scripture. The word azer, pronounced azer, speaks of God's strength, power, and protection, help, and being a rescuer. So basically saying it's supposed to be like the person, when it describes helper as a woman, it's more like your helper in battle.
Right. And you know, this could be the way I interpret it is it's either spiritual warfare, you know, like what?
I'm like, it's all of it.
Yeah. You know, so a woman is not, you know, because the English term helper, it just like makes it seem so
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
get me?
that's
Right.
another thing. Like our language is another aspect of it, but in reality, like the woman's role and the man's role are equal.
Right. And you know,
Both
and then a
equally
lot of
important.
that shows the importance of equality is shown here. But helper doesn't just mean, oh, you know, shut up, you're just my helper, go make a sandwich.
Yeah,
Come
no,
You know,
on.
like
definitely not.
you know, like although yes,
crazy.
we're the head of the household and it's important for us to be the head so that way there's a final say, because having, you know, when you have two leaders in a position what country has two presidents? You get me? Like
Right.
like you can't have two governing
You're
leaders.
gonna end up
it's
butting
just
heads at
exactly
one
it's
point,
just
and-
crashing all the time.
Yeah.
So it helps when our helper or our warrior helper, I want to call it, is submissive and understands her role as well as a man understanding the woman's role. But now the man needs to understand that you might have the responsibility or the ability, let's say, as the final say, but there's so much more responsibility for us.
Exactly.
You got to lead your house spiritually and in this earth.
Yeah.
You get me? And that's a lot of pressure. You know, we're in a position right now where men are kind of like, oh, well, you know, it's a little easier to just lay back.
Yeah.
You get me? Like, let me let my wife take the leadership, and
Right.
you know, and that's why. What is it? And we have housewives, but now we have house husbands,
Yeah,
or
house
how
husbands, yeah.
how
That's
is
a
it
thing?
called?
That's-
Yeah.
House
Yeah.
husband. Instead.
Huh?
Yeah.
Stay-at-home husband.
Oh,
Yeah.
stay-at-home
Stay-at-home
husbands.
husband.
Yes, that's a thing, and it's
Yeah.
becoming common.
Wow.
You know, this is like kind of like this new age where we're being progressive and stuff like that.
Notice how
that's
like
crazy.
the traditional way, like the biblical way, is the man works, right? The man provides, even all the way till Adam, right? The man is providing, the woman is taking care of the household, right? Those are the roles that God set in place. And notice how now it's being twisted and it's being backwards.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of the world we're living in. That's the nature of the way Satan does things.
Yeah.
Is he twists things and he flips them on their head, and just to be out of the biblical order. Like even to the point where even in the Satanic temple, they take the Bible and they read it backwards and upside down.
Yeah.
Like that's how messed up like the world is becoming, and people don't even realize it. They think like the rise of feminism is all about equality, when in reality, like feminists are fighting to feel empowered when feminine women, like feminine Christian women, they already feel empowered because of their femininity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's you should highlight that. That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah. So, you know, and it's crazy, but this is the reality that we're living in.
So I wanted to add on to something.
Go ahead.
So, okay, this is all great in terms of like a marriage, right? Now, what do you think of
Dating?
you're dating someone?
Yeah, because we are stepping into marriage.
Marriage.
Although
Dating
technically
is great.
technically we need
Yeah,
to
it is
understand though that Christians, you know, we need to understand that when you're dating with purpose.
Yeah.
You're not just dating to mess around, which is why we're getting into the more serious topic of gender roles and house
Right.
roles and stuff like that. But in the sense of dating, I think it's a little more lighthearted, you know?
I think
Yeah,
I think
it shouldn't be so hardcore.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely not. I think dating, one thing I heard and I definitely agree with is like, if you're in a relationship, you're not going to be submitting to your boyfriend because he's not your husband.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right? But you also have to, you can't take that to an extreme where like, oh, I'm never going to submit to you because you're not my husband. But a biblical man, and he's going to want to see that you are even capable of submission, right? So you're going to have to like show it in some way, and he's going to have to show you in that same way that he's going to be responsible, a provider. Like it goes both ways. Like when you're dating and you're dating for marriage, you want to see that this person is going to be that life partner that's going to be able to stick with you throughout life, like throughout the struggles of life.
Yeah.
And that's what a key characteristic of a good helper. Like they're going to help you in the roughest times. You know, they're not just going to leave or when you're in a low point, they're going to support you.
Yeah.
You know?
And I believe that's very important, you know, as far as in dating as well. Like, will you hold me down? Let's say if I'm jobless right now for just temporarily, you know, can you hold me down in prayer? That's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if I can't pray for myself, can you pray for me? Because I'm gonna need somebody. I'm gonna need someone to hold me down in prayer, because we're not always gonna be able to pray for ourselves. You know, like it's those things that I look at, and it, you know, and that's where I determine, you know, okay, whether if this person is gonna be a life partner or not. You know, person
I think
for me.
I think one of the most important things that I looked at, again, talking from the personal experience, that they absolutely put Jesus over everything,
Right.
and that they loved him more than they would ever even think of loving me.
Yeah.
Because that shows honestly like maturity. That shows you're mature in the spirit in a certain way. That shows that your priorities are right.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah.
all in order.
Yeah.
Because we look at it now as such a thing that's so light. Like everything's like so dating now is very
It's kind of like a joke now.
it's a joke.
Like
Think
you're
of
with
it
this
as
person, couple months, boom.
Yeah.
Like,
that's it.
Like,
And you're here for the experience and then you're
Yeah.
gone. But
Yeah.
I feel like we've lost that sensibility of dating with purpose again.
yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Because that's how Christians we should be dating. Like we should be dating with, hey, you know, one day you are gonna be my wife, or one day you could be that, right?
Yeah, and,
Right.
and in the Bible, there's no direct like wisdom or guidance on dating, mainly because it's not something that happened back then, right? And that's also something we have to consider, that you want to be like, as a man, you want to be ready, right? That's how it was. You weren't gonna get married back then, and like you're not ready for it. Like same thing with a woman, like you're not gonna get married when you're not ready for it. Because the guy, like the man back then, if he's gonna pursue someone that that's already capable of that. You know, that's why I feel like dating at such a young age can be tough, because you don't know like how this person's gonna turn out or whatever. Like, obviously, I know with you guys dated young and it worked out, thank God. But like, I'm saying it shouldn't be like a standard, you know, like it should be like, that's something you have to consider. Like, if you're, as a man, you're not ready, like, why are you pursuing a woman when your purpose is marriage as a Christian?
Yeah. Wow. All right. I would love to continue on with this one, but we gotta move on.
We need a whole podcast
just for that one, right?
Yeah, we need a whole podcast.
Right now. Let me just say,
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't want girls, and you know, we'll end it here, but I don't want girls to think like, oh no, you know, these guys are just like one-sided, blah blah blah.
No.
You know, we understand we're living in a world where both men and women work, and I believe in my household, at least, you know, my wife does have a say. She does bring in income, and in fact, I have no shame in saying she brings majority of the income, or more income than I do. You get me? Yeah. Does it make her greater than me? No. We still have the roles.
Yeah.
And when you allow the roles, and when you allow the principles of God to enter into your home, things work out just better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right. So moving into,
It's perfectly fine for a Christian to date a non-Christian.
So I want to bring up a story. I'm not going to name.
Wait. Before you move into that, I just want to go into the polls real quick.
Yeah.
So the stats say 33% agree. 33% of the people that voted agree that yes, it is okay to date a non-Christian, while 67% disagreed. Go ahead.
So I wanted to share a quick story. I'm not going to name the names here. But basically, the story started off as two people met in high school, right? One wasn't Christian, super atheist. One was Christian. The boy was Christian, the girl wasn't. And the boy just would like talk to her about God like the whole time. And she was just like, no, like stop bothering me. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to do that. And so over time, like she got really annoyed and she confronted him. She was like, hey, like, I'm going to like report you because I don't want you talking to me anymore. Like, this is crazy. You're talking about God. So he stopped for a while. Months later, something moved her in her heart to be like, all right, you know what? Like, I'm just to apologize. So she apologized to him and they became friends, and she was open to the idea of learning. And they actually started dating while she was like in that journey. Not Christian yet though.
Yeah. Right.
But she was on it. And so eventually, you know, it impacted her so much, you know, the words that he was speaking to her and God literally, you know, having that vessel through him, right, and speaking to her, that she decided to just pursue God on her own as well. It's not just, you know, oh, because my boyfriend is Christian, I'm just going to fall along with him. No, she was actually doing it on her own. And then after that, like, she got baptized, like she was like officially Christian. So I don't know, when that story was told to me, when I met the people and they were telling me about it, I kind of thought about it as like, okay, like this is one way where you can kind of think about it. Like, he kind of dated somebody who wasn't Christian. Right. But it's rare, right? These situations, they don't happen all the time. My opinion still stands with we shouldn't date non-Christians.
Yeah, because that was my next question. You know, has anyone changed their position since the
definitely doesn't change, but I feel like this is an important story to highlight that it can happen.
Okay. Now I wanna actually, because the thing is, you guys have you ever dated anybody that wasn't Christian?
No. But
in Christianity or outside?
Outside of Christianity, have you dated someone? Because I know that you did.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
you know, because you know it says it here, and I'll play the clip.
I definitely agree because, you know, I come from both sides where I dated, you know, outside of Christianity and inside Christianity.
But we got the proof here, right? So for now, you said you come from both sides. What was your experience like?
Okay, so dating outside of Christianity, it was definitely different as far as like the things that we did. You know, like we would stay up, we'll be together. I mean, we'll be around like which hours, which is like 12 to like 5 a.m. around that time and things like that. You know, we would be kissing, doing all that stuff, like falling into fornication.
For now.
Things like that.
He's
So,
freed
like,
from it. He's freed. In Jesus.
Amen. Receive it. But that's what, you know, me dating outside of Christianity, things like that, that's what we would normally do. But then me dating inside Christianity was completely different. We wasn't hanging out past 12 a.m.
Right.
12 a.m. at night, or you know, really trying to kiss or like do things like that. It was mainly just trying to keep it pure and really stay and have Christ in the middle of our relationship. And
So would you say that your relationship with God was hindered because of this?
yeah,
this-
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like was it an influence
Yeah,
or
like,
you know, was it just harder for you to just keep on track?
Yeah, it was very hard for me to keep on track. I stopped praying. I even walked away from church for like, I think, a whole entire month. And in that whole entire month, I was being tormented in my mind. Like, it was so powerful, the torment of what I was going through. I was like, oh, yeah, no, I need to go back to church.
Right,
You know, I need to
right.
get up and go because I got to get free from this because it was so heavy on me. I felt heavy and my mind was just heavy. I was like, yeah, no, let me get up and go. So I
Right,
got up and I
right.
went to church, and ever since then, I never stopped going.
Yeah.
You know?
Nice.
Yeah.
And you know, and this goes back to what you were saying. Like, you know, you want to advise younger Christians to
Yeah.
stay within because of that reason.
Yeah.
You know, you never really know. Like, I get it. You know, some people, and I'm gonna read some of the comments that were made, but you know, I get it. Some people might not feel attracted to someone that's in the faith, or you just haven't found that, or you just haven't found. Why are you laughing?
Because I know the response that you're going at.
Oh, okay.
I have, I
Yeah.
have a comment on
It's
this.
because they don't sing good.
You know, and I get it. You know, attraction plays a big deal, a big thing, or a big role into finding somebody, and you might not be attracted to somebody that's near you, right? So I understand that, but just understand that dating outside of the faith is a risk. Is a risk of bad influence. I'm not saying that. Oh, you know, like you're just automatically assuming that this person's gonna. No, what I'm saying is that there's a possibility. Now, if God were to play His relationship on a possibility with you, do you think you'd be saved or not? You get me? Like if He was so flimsy with it. Oh, you know,
It shouldn't be a gamble.
you know, like
Yeah.
it's not.
It shouldn't be a gamble. It's
Jesus was here to save us, and He did His job, He did His mission, and He saved us.
Yeah.
You get me? And we believe that, right? Why can't we treat Him with the same respect?
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Come on now.
Like we can't expect to be used by God and still saying, oh, well, you know, like I'm gonna just put this portion of my life and take full control of it, and I'm gonna allow for me to do things the way I want to do. But this portion, you know, I can call it Christian. You get what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah, I
we,
get you.
we can't really do that.
Yeah, it's like you're taking this one area and you're separating God from it. You're ignoring His guidance and His wisdom on it, and you think you know better, honestly,
Right.
Because that's really what it is, and you think you can in the back of your head, you're like wondering, can I get away with this? Like
Yeah.
like I've been attracted to girls who weren't Christian, right? And like back in my high school days, I would talk to, like, there was one in particular that I tried to pursue, but it never went anyway. And I'm glad it never went anywhere. I mean, and I'm glad for that, because now, like, I'm like, no, like, thank God. Like, I see like pictures she posts or whatever.
Oh,
I'm like, oh yeah,
well, there you
definitely
go.
not. Like,
Well, there you go.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like we as men, like I'm gonna speak as men, like we see pretty girls, like we're physically driven, you know? We see things that look good to us and we want it, you know, especially when it comes to girls. So attraction plays a major role in that. And we can't just go based on what we see, like physically. Like if their spiritual life is not there, why do we want that
Right.
anyway?
Right.
Like it takes growth to be attracted first to who they are in their relationship with God than who they are physically.
right.
There's like two type of Christians that I always like to say is there's Christians and there's Christinas.
Bro, that's like the famous. That's like
never
the
heard that.
Latin. That is so. That is like the Latin. Yeah. So that is like the Latin go-to response, right? Because Cristina is like because of that singer Cristina.
No. It's just like
It's just like a word that's
Oh, I
like
thought that's
similar
how
to
they
it,
used
but
it.
it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
it's it.
not Christian.
Yeah.
That's how I always put them.
So it's just like a, like somebody that calls themselves Christian but really isn't.
they're not Christian.
Yeah.
I get you.
I think
Yeah.
that those, in my opinion, in my opinion, those are the most dangerous. Those are the most dangerous because
Yeah,
they
I
know
go to church.
They
I go
know
to church,
the word.
but they lead you astray.
They know the word of God.
Yeah.
They know what they're getting into. They exactly know what they've been taught.
It's like the
right?
same people who say, "Oh, I can do this because God's gonna forgive me."
Right.
Like,
Oh
I feel
my
like
God, yeah.
I
It's
give
an
the
abuse of
benefit of the
grace.
doubt to the people who don't know Jesus, but the people who don't know Jesus, y'all should know better.
yeah, like
Y'all
you're
should know
abusing
better.
grace and you're diminishing Jesus' sacrifice for us.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Yeah.
sad, honestly.
Yeah. So you said something that I want to bring up.
How are those conversations with your parents or her parents are gonna go? You know what I mean? Like if they come from a background that's very like to party, like to smoke hookah, like we see everybody around here doing nowadays. How is that gonna go when you want to pull her to church on a Friday?
Like this portion, like especially where it says, "What does your date's family life look like? What's their background?" You said that, and I'm not sure where you stood on the line because obviously.
Everyone here was on. Highly disagree.
Yes, highly disagree,
For
right?
which one?
Because you were talking about how like what does their family look like? You get me? Like how would that conversation go if
Right.
you were dating somebody that wasn't Christian and you were trying to explain that you're all Christian,
Right.
but their background comes from a place that a family that smokes hookah or like is constantly getting
Yeah, I remember
drunk
saying
or
that,
doing
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like you made a good point because it's like if you're going to pursue somebody that's outside of the faith, okay, what does their lifestyle look like?
Right.
You get me? And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that lifestyle will kind of play a role in whether or not that person might receive the word.
Yeah.
You get me? Because we're not blind to the fact that, like you said, that story, the possibility of someone that's non-Christian becoming Christian. We're not blind to that. Who are we to say that God can't work that way, right? But what does their lifestyle look like and whether or not that lifestyle might consume you?
Right.
You know?
I like to say this: expect resistance, because there's always going to be a bandwidth of situations where you're going to get into that aren't going to benefit you spiritually or mentally.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to go into a situation where you like this girl or you love her, and you really want to get to know this person, and then when you get to meet what she's about, right? Even let's put the girl you're interested in, right, away for a second. Let's just look at where she comes from, right? Or like her family or her friends and stuff like that. I'm a big believer in this. Like her friends say a big thing about who she's about, right? Like you could tell how somebody is with their friends around. And if they choose a band of friends who necessarily aren't Christian, aren't following God, they're not involved with the word, they're not pushing her to be a godly woman, what's that to say about your relationship and how that's going to operate when you're like, hey, let's go to church on Saturday or let's go to church on Sunday? What's going to happen? No, I'm going to go out partying with my girlfriends.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to be.
That influence is just gonna go right to you as well.
Exactly. And then, well, if you're like weak-minded, I guess it would go, right? Because, a firm Christian wouldn't let that happen. A firm Christian would peace
A firm
out,
Christian wouldn't even
even get there.
be with that girl
That's
in the
what,
first place. Yeah.
that's what I was getting to. They would peace out before they even see anything, right? But if you're in that situation, I know a lot of guys are right now, right? Because maybe their girl looks too good, or maybe they're afraid that they won't get somebody else. Definitely will, bro.
All right, so I want to start getting into what our viewers are actually saying because, sure, us four, we can have an opinion, but some people might not think like we do. And clearly 33% of the people that saw this or that participated in the poll don't agree with us, or they somewhat agree with us. And so I want to, I'll elaborate on that a little bit more. So I want to get into some of the comments that were made. This person, let me see, did they disagree? Did they agree? No, they disagreed, but they felt that they should say this. So this person said, it's a guy, by the way, not perfectly fine, but there will be situations where it may happen and it's okay. That's what he's saying.
For what?
To date a non-Christian.
I think
so
it's-
this is
yeah,
kind of
the
going back to
story,
what you were
yeah,
saying.
It may happen. like,
There might be a situation where it's okay. Then another person said, I think it's fine to have crushes, but dating is usually for marriage, so I don't agree.
Yeah.
True.
It's
That's
what we said.
what I'm saying, yeah.
If you're in a dating, it's because you're dating with purpose.
Exactly.
Christians don't date to fling around. This isn't a Tinder. Do you get me? Like, we're not swiping here.
Yeah, and
Come
honestly,
on now.
honestly, we should, like, as Christians, I feel like this is something that's really been like I've been like gaining new revelation on. Is like we really should be minimizing the amount of like relationships, like dating relationships we have. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't see the need. Like, you don't need to pursue 4 girls before finding like
Yeah.
the 5th. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like,
get it. I mean,
it's just-
listen, we started at 14, and I had that mindset right away. Where it's like,
That's
it's like,
big,
no,
man.
like
Yeah.
you're,
That's big.
and I told her at 14, I mean, I shouldn't have done this because anybody could get freaked out, right?
Traumatized.
Like,
Freaked out.
You were traumatized.
yeah, you know, like she got a little freaked out, right? But I was like, no, you're my wife. You get me? Like me at 14, like her mom would say, "Tú eres un mocoso." Like, you get me?
What
Like
does that
you're just like some. How would you say that in
It's
English?
like you can't even like clean your own boogers.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You
like
get
you're
me?
still
Like,
like a baby.
yeah, yeah. And I'm over here saying, no,
Yeah.
that's my wife.
But you know what's crazy?
No, but-
Even at 14, you had a purpose, though.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right,
You know what I mean?
right. You know, it's just, it comes down to mentality. But
Right.
as Christians, again, we have to date with purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another person said this person would be on our side and would say a relationship on earth should reflect your relationship with God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very
Yeah.
true.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, man.
We could peel back layers to that, but
Yeah.
it's so simple, even in like the simplest mannerisms, right? How you communicate is so big on
Yeah.
how it reflects with God, like
Yeah.
how you're doing with God. If a relationship usually has like great communication, obviously you're Christian, you're obviously talking to her. I'm assuming that you'd have a pretty good communication. you know,
Yeah.
with God, right?
Yeah.
But if it's flimsy, if it's like, you know, I'm not being honest all the time, or I'm not really communicating, or I don't express my emotions, or
Yeah.
maybe you're not expressing your emotions to who
Yeah.
you're supposed
And
to
one
be.
thing about honesty is I heard a psychologist say this, is that it's hard to be honest when you're afraid someone's going to run away, or like when they can run away. You know what I mean? Like if you as a man or as a woman and you're in a relationship and you have a fear that if you're honest with this person about this thing, they're just going to leave, or they're going to be like, oh, like I don't want this relationship anymore. That's like super tough. Like
Yeah.
it may influence you to not tell the truth. And I think that's why dating with purpose is very important, because in a marriage, when you've made that commitment, it's not a small commitment.
Yeah.
So you work through everything. And that's why when we model a marriage relationship in our dating, our mindset, both the woman and the man's mindset should be on fixing any problems and working through our problems, and not
Yeah.
working and not finding ways out of them.
right?
Yeah.
You guys are a team. It's
Yeah.
it's you guys versus the problem, not
Yeah.
Exactly.
not y'all
Not
versus
just-
each
yeah.
other.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right. So this person would be technically agreeing. They're saying there's Christians dating non-Christians, with non-Christians willing to get into church. You know, and that again, that goes back to what we were saying before. It's all situational,
Right.
but there's a portion here, because now I'm gonna get into a female that responded and she agreed, but she's agreeing by experience.
Okay.
And this experience, I want anybody who agrees with dating non-Christians, I want them to take this and understand that this experience is situational as well.
Right.
Right. So this person's saying people pursuing a non-Christian partner should feel it out and see if the person you're with is willing to attend church. Once there, ask God for direction and be prepared to hear what he has to say no matter what. I also want to point out, and like I said before, you know, this person is married to that guy. You get me?
And they're Christian? Both of them?
They're both Christian.
Okay.
They're married, successful marriage, kids and everything, right?
Nice.
Now, I do want to point out the situation or the background of this man. Father and mother, both Christians, grew up in Christianity, but he did not want anything to do with it. O sea, he separated himself. He didn't want anything to do with it, so he was living a non-Christian life. Now, in that situation, the man knows the word because his mother and his father breathed the word. You get me? Like, no, let me not say breathe the word before keyboard warriors start attacking me. But they live the word. Right. They live the word. They live by the word. You get me? So he has positive influence around them. Therefore, he's more likely to go to church. So in her situation, it worked out for her because of his background. And going back again to what you were saying, what does that person's background look like?
Right.
And that will determine whether or not that person might actually become Christian.
He definitely had the upper hand there. He had instruction from his parents. So his parents are the GOAT right there for doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that she said this. Ask God for direction.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us will say, "Oh, well, I'm praying on it." Are you praying on it really? Or are you making a decision and praying on it? But you're making the decision anyway.
Are you praying as you're
it's like oh no, I'm praying on it, but like we're still dating, but I'm praying on it.
I feel like some people pray and they go like, God, let it be your will, but I have my answer.
Right.
I have my personal answer.
Let it be your will, but I'm still gonna act on my will. Yeah. It's just like I know you're gonna do your thing.
Let me tell you, you're never gonna get your answer.
I feel like with people like that, they even though they already have their answer already made up, they just throw God onto it. They just want God to be in agreement with their will.
To justify
That's yes.
It's like you're the lawyer trying to pursue the juror, like, hey, or the jury, sorry, like, hey, you guys should believe me, but it's like,
right.
Are you for real?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah. And one thing that definitely helps me when it comes to that is just praying for God's will to be done.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I can have in my mind, like, I want this thing, but if in reality this thing is going to harm me or hold me back, then I don't want it.
Yeah.
You know? And only God knows. Like, he has our lives planned out. So his will ultimately is what we should really desire.
Yeah. And it just reminds me about that scripture we had brought up in Bible study.
Yeah.
A man makes his Proverbs 16.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, come on now.
But the Lord, it's the Lord who determines his steps. And it's very important, going back to your point of what you were saying, it's very important for us to seek God on whatever it is that we do, as far as, in dating, as you said, this person you may think that person is good for you, but in God's eyes, this person will do a lot of harm.
Yeah.
You get me?
And I think if you separate yourself from that person and you really, really deeply reflect, you think back and you'll be like, yeah, like this person was holding me back in a lot of areas. You're like, especially as a non-Christian.
Oh, yeah.
How do you want a Christian girl? Like, she doesn't pray, right? She doesn't even know God. Like, and you want to trust her to raise your kids or even trust her to take care of you?
Let me tell you, from personal experience, after getting out of that whole mess that I went through, when I was a kid and everything, let me tell you, doors opened up without me having to do anything. Yeah. I had to really let go of some things that I really cared about, right? Like, I really was attached to, and it was so hard, right? In the beginning, of course, but it felt so freeing when I could finally say, I'm free. Amen. When I could finally say, like, hey, like, these things aren't holding me back anymore. These things, like, I could be like fully myself now.
And it takes trust. You have to trust
Big
God
trust.
that he has you in his hands.
Because you're walking, like, I like to think of this analogy. I'm walking on like a tightrope. Mist is all around. Down there, it seems like 60 feet. Down below to your death. But in reality, it's like a little step.
Yeah.
And there's no mist. It's just you walking on like wood or something like that, or walking on a firm platform, so to speak. That's how I always think of it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to allow God's perfect will into our life, we have to walk that way too.
Yeah.
But all right. So moving into the next statement.
I'm comfortable talking about my struggles with other Christians.
82% of the people agreed that they can. Meanwhile, 18% of the people said they couldn't. I want to point out something that you said, actually.
It's always me.
Right? It's always you. No, but you said something that was interesting, because I think a lot of people can resonate with this, and even I do. And I'll bring up my stories. But you talked about betrayal.
My personal experience, all my friends growing up were like Christian. Growing up in my old church and stuff like that, and everything. But I've experienced a lot of betrayal. I want to be over there. You know what I mean? Like, that's my goal, to be in that. Highly agree, because I feel like as Christians, we should just come out to each other and be like, yo, what's up? How we doing? Have a nice dinner, whatever, and then you guys could share some stuff, and that's it.
And you seem to have stand firm. You definitely wanted to, be able to.
Yeah.
But you talked about this betrayal. Is it okay to step in that?
Yeah, of course, right. Yeah. I probably won't get into the maximum amount of details, right, to save face for everyone, that was involved, right? But I still stand with the fact that I really do want to be on that side. I think I was talking to EJ there, and I was facing him. And I was like, dude, I really want to be there, right? And I know that eventually I will be there. Like that is my goal, because I do want to. We're supposed to trust other Christians. We're supposed to confide in them. I'm supposed to confide in all these people in the room right now, because we're from the same faith. We're brothers and sisters, and that's how it's supposed to be. But because because it was so kind of recent, and it was like it's just still clouding me, right? Betrayal, right? When someone wants to be there for you, or says matter of fact, they say that they are going to be there and they're not, and then they abandon you in every single sense, right? It's something that hurts, especially as because I'm young, right? We think everything's the end. Sometimes, right? We
can be a little dramatic.
We can be dramatic, right? And I think we're a little bit more dramatic when we're younger, because we think that everything's gonna fall apart and we're not gonna have a life. And it's like, we need to step back and look at perspective and be like, all right, this isn't the end of everything. You know what I mean? So that whole betrayal part was just something it just impacted me in a really deep way, that I lost my faith. Not faith like that, but I lost my faith in Christian people.
In people, yeah.
Oh, okay.
In Christian people, yeah. No, I wasn't nowhere near that. But I lost my faith in Christian people, because I was like, out of all the people that I would expect, like, really?
Yeah.
Like, Christian people really do that?
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we said in the beginning. Like, Christian people, we're not perfect. Like, we're just people as well.
Exactly.
Like,
and that's so important that you said that, because that was my next thought. Like, God, take these thoughts away from me, that I dislike them, that I even to a point hate them, because that's not from you. That's from the enemy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first steps that I had to take to heal, because now I am healed, right? But when the question came up, I just thought about a time that it happened, right? So that's why I disagreed. But now sitting here with all you guys, like, it has been a huge healing process to get there, because I had to ask myself some really hard questions, and some questions that I didn't even want to ask myself. Like, I asked myself, like, yo, like, I think I should be feeling like this. Like, I have the right to be feeling like this. But guess what? I don't, because hate should not exist within Christians. Right. That's something that should be disbanded forever. That's not real. And so I had to really go through a process of forgiving them. And sometimes forgiveness doesn't always come with having a conversation in person.
Yeah.
Sometimes forgiveness just comes from your heart, man.
Yeah,
that's it.
Very true.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, I know you want to say something to that.
bringing up this whole forgiveness stuff. It's like, it's very true, because as much as we want to have a conversation with that person, it might not happen. And we have to settle that thing in our hearts to be like, you know what? I forgive. Although I know we're not going to have a conversation, I forgive you. And that's how a person is mature in Christ.
Yes.
You get me? It's just being able to forgive although we didn't speak. Being able to forgive although I didn't hear that I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Being able to forgive in spite of, and that's true love. That's the if that's the right word, exemption. Exemplifying. That's what I'm looking for. That's what Christ wanted us to do. God's word literally says, forgive, so the Father in heaven could forgive us. But also, he also says, when Peter asked him, Jesus, how many times must I forgive someone who sins against me? He said 7 times 70. That means, consistently, if y'all didn't know.
Yeah.
But it's just very true. No matter what people do to us, Christian or non-Christian, we just have to continue to forgive. And it's hard because it's just like, you have a right. You have a right to feel some type of way. You get me?
We feel like we're entitled to that feeling of hate or whatever, but we're not. Absolutely. We're supposed to let that go. As hard as it is, we are meant to let it go. And I want to bring up another quick story. I had a good friend of mine. His father was never present in his life at all. From a little kid, never present in his life. He was always doing things out on the street, and he went to jail, right? And he's still in jail as we're speaking. And my good friend, he never had a chance to have a father and son moment, and that affected him growing up. He went through a long journey of ups and downs and all that stuff. But he told me something really important, because I was just getting out of that betrayal stage, and he was telling me this whole story, and I was like, yo, you should write a book about it. But he was telling me, he was like, one of the most important things and one of the hardest questions you're going to ask yourself is, and you really got to ask yourself is, you're probably never going to get that conversation.
Yeah.
Or you're probably never going to get that front to front connection with that person or with that situation again.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to sit there and really think like the silence just poured in, because I was like, God, all I want is a conversation.
Mhm.
All I want is the why.
Yeah.
Big why.
Yeah.
And just a peace came over me, because it was like God saying, but I'm greater than that. But my forgiveness, my glory, my power oversteps over anything that you're feeling right now. And
Yeah.
that's more important than what you're feeling right now. What you're feeling right now is temporary, but what I have for you behind that closed door is forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really spoke to me about like, and then to kind of wrap up that story, what I was saying before, it was like, I truly forgave them without ever having a conversation.
Yeah.
Without ever having a connection or a moment or a sit down to talk about it. I was like, Lord, like, if that person were to ever come back, I think we'd just have a normal conversation and probably wouldn't even bring up what happened in the past, because it was like, that's pointless.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so now that you're in this stage of forgiveness,
Yeah.
does that open the opportunity to allow other Christians into your life?
I think now that, because it's in the past, right? I think I am getting closer to that side where EJ was at. Definitely not 100% there yet, right?
Yeah.
There's still a process to get there, but it's definitely looking in the right direction, because, well, let's look at this room right now, right? You guys, right? This is like you created an open space for Christians to talk about in this podcast. And to me, that's like huge, because that can push people who are watching and who are here in this chair right now, who you bring in and out, right? That pushes Christians to just think alike and get closer, to be like, hey, well, this guy kind of thinks similar to me. Why can't I confide in him? You know what I mean?
Right.
So this is like a huge example of how Christians should pursue connection and how they should pursue, right, getting together and being in like a fellowship, which is super important. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's great.
I wanted to ask something.
Go
real
ahead.
quick.
Go ahead.
Because I was thinking as you was talking, when you was, even if you did get that conversation,
Right.
And it wasn't what you wanted to hear,
Yeah.
how would you have felt?
I think if I were to ever get that conversation back again or whatever, right? Because it was with multiple individuals. If I were to ever get that conversation back and I didn't really get what I wanted to hear, I wouldn't really necessarily be mad or just feel anything, because there's already forgiveness in me. So it kind of just be like another conversation, to be honest. It kind of just be like, all right, cool. Like, this was great, but we're going to move on. You know what I mean? We're going to keep pursuing whatever we want to pursue, right? Because it's just a conversation. you know?
Yeah. I wanted to point out something that you actually said, Corollas.
I also wish I could be over there, and it's just hard for me sometimes, but I know it's important.
What would you say is the importance in seeking that ability to confine into other Christians?
Okay, well, first thing that comes to mind is, like we spoke earlier about correction. Sometimes we don't see our own errors, our own faults, and it can be hard to admit that we like have areas where we need improvement, you know?
Yes.
So having someone like a good friend who isn't afraid of confronting you about those things lovingly and with grace,
Mm-hmm.
that is very important. Or having someone from church who's not afraid of coming to you and be like, hey, you ever thought about this? Or maybe you ever thought that what you're doing right now, did you ever think that, is this really biblical? Sometimes we really need that. And I have a good friend who does that with me, and then I'm always like, like maybe, like I consider it, right? I'm like, yeah, maybe he's right. And even if I initially am like, really? Like, do I really do that? Like, I won't blow it off, because he could be seeing something that I'm not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes both ways. I could see something that he's not seeing.
Yeah.
And as Christians and as humans, we have to be constantly wanting to improve and grow and be better. And we really need like a support system who's not afraid of offending us. Like this is something that's a big issue nowadays. Like,
Yeah,
even
everybody's
in the
everybody's
Christian
too
community.
sensitive.
Yeah.
Stepping on toes. Like,
Even in the Christian community, like a pastor could be afraid to confront like someone from the congregation because they don't
or their
wanna
church
offend
in
them.
general.
Yeah, or
right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
culture of the church.
I mean, I look at big celebrity, not celebrity pastors, but
Right.
mega churches. They don't really talk about sin or
Yeah.
dive into any of the ugly stuff because they're afraid that, you know,
They're
some
gonna lose
people,
people.
exactly.
Yeah,
they preach-
that some people might step away because that's not my style of church.
Yeah, they preach a watered down.
Yeah.
Like
There was
most
there
of
was
them
this
preach
there was this
watered down
joke on
gospel.
Valentine's Day talking about like Joel Osteen. You know what I'm talking about, right? The one about I want to love you or something like that, but I gotta take the context out of you or whatever.
What
I
is
wanna
this?
love
was
you,
the
but
funny-
I-
What is that?
I didn't see that.
That was mad funny.
It was something like, "Oh, is your name Contact? Because I want to
Take
take
a good.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I
mention
saw
Joel
that.
Osteen
I saw
about
that,
it.
yeah.
See, we joke about
Wait,
it
where does Joel Osteen fit in that?
because his
He's-
all his sermons
it's
are
watered down.
It really
Yeah.
watered
It's
down.
very
Oh, he's the one that
prosperity.
said this?
No.
it was a
Imagine
technique.
no, that would have been crazy. Confession.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like we laugh about it, but we all know like it's true.
It's
Like,
true,
He
yeah.
has one of the biggest mega churches in the
Yeah.
U.S.
Yeah, it's huge.
And literally, most of his sermons, or literally almost all of his sermons, have no real biblical
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
They're like the power of God or like the glory of God or how this can like save
Yeah,
you
but he
and that can
twists
save you,
it.
but
Like he took
it's very
the
watered down.
story of David and Bathsheba and the death of the child. He took that and twisted it as David remaining in faith with God because he didn't get upset that the child was dead. Like what? Like how do you
No.
take something like that
Yeah.
and twist it all that way and bring it to this? Like
Yeah.
like it's such a big focus on positivity and all
Yeah.
this stuff when
Prosperity.
sometimes
Yeah.
when most of the time what we need is a direct confrontation of
Yeah.
our sin, because that's what the gospel is
Right.
meant to do. It's supposed to confront us about our sin, and it's supposed to lead us to repentance and a change of mind entirely and a change of our actions, and
Yeah.
that is something that's really missing.
Yeah. And you know, and that goes back to what I was saying before, the importance of correction. We need to allow correction into our life. We're not always going to be 100% on everything we say or everything we believe on. But if we allow correction to come into our life, we're allowing God's will, because it is God's will,
Yeah.
to surround ourselves with wise people.
Exactly.
Why? Because we need to, there's a reason why he says in Proverbs, the wise seek the wise.
Yeah.
You get me? No one fully knows everything and anything. That's
Yeah.
God's position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't want, like, I don't think any of us want that.
Yeah.
Like that weight. Like imagine knowing every single thing.
Nah,
Yeah.
Like, we'd go crazy, you know?
We'd go
Like
insane.
God, we're ignorant for a reason, and we're ignorant to a lot of things, and even about ourselves, because maybe God's going to use that to let you grow. Maybe God's going to use that to promote growth and to promote progress in your life. Like if you're someone who can't take correction or can't even be like, hey, like maybe you're doing this wrong, like that really shows pride, and it shows like a lack of ability to
Right.
just be humble.
You're
and
putting your
realize,
That's how do you-
humanness
yeah.
instead of your spiritualness.
It's like, how do
Yeah.
you expect to grow if
Yeah.
you can't, if you won't allow correction?
yeah, or if you
Right.
think you're perfect or whatever it is,
Yeah.
like,
It's
or
called
you're
narcissist.
afraid of messing up.
Mm.
Like even like you could think, you can be aware that I'm not perfect, I'm human, but if you're afraid of making mistakes, like it's another thing, because you'll be stuck in this mindset of I'm afraid of making mistakes, and you'll be moving throughout life with like, you want to make sure everything you do is perfect, right? So when someone comes and you're like, hey, you messed up here, or you did this wrong, in your mind you're like, but wait, I thought about that before I did it because I wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
But really you still could mess up. Like,
And all this is to say, you know, this is why it's important to seek other Christians to be able to speak about your struggles. You know, and this is, I want to go into something that someone said as one of our viewers. She said, I feel like some Christians are chismosos, gossipers. For example, one time for choir rehearsal, the worship team was practicing for the song for service. And I heard a church member say, how could they let her sing knowing her past? She
Oh.
used to do X, Y, Z.
Whoa.
You know,
That's
and
judging.
That's
it's
judging.
judgment. You get me? Like
Yeah.
it's you're judging.
That's not good.
And how this is why it becomes an issue for Christians seeking other Christians. This is why it's an issue for Christians opening up about their past and saying, I've been freed. Because some other people will actually take that as a form of gossip and say, oh, did you know that this person used to do this?
Yeah.
yeah, and
You have to understand that this person is free.
That's how people
from
become
that
church
past.
hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how people get church hurt. You know, and you mentioned something. And you said,
Or, there's people that's waiting for you to fall. You get me, like, oh, you're supposed to be a Christian. Why are you doing this? Like,
lot of judgment.
people,
Yeah,
and people forget
That's true.
that we struggle.
Exactly.
Just because we in Christ, don't mean everything is gonna be
Come on.
Yeah, and,
better.
like,
You get what
people
I'm
don't
saying?
we struggle just as much as somebody outside of the world would struggle. You get me? Just because we have this Christian walk, and I'm talking, a real Christian, like us, let's say, we try our best to walk the way Jesus was walked. We do our best to follow the gospel. We do our best to use sound doctrine, right? But that's not to say we're not going to fall tomorrow, or that's not going to say that's not to say that we might just say something in the next 5 minutes that's completely utter trash. You get me?
I would say
Foreshadowing.
Right?
Just foreshadowing.
But anyway, I would say that we struggle more than those in the world, because those in the world don't care at the end of the day.
That's true. That is true.
We have a sense of what's right and wrong, and because we love God, we don't want to do wrong. So we move with him, and we want to do right by him. We want to bring him glory.
Yeah.
So that can be a struggle because, again, like, we are not perfect, but you have to realize that even if someone is going to gossip about you, at the end of the day, what should matter most to you is how are you really, like, what is really your state, the state of your relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I also want to point out a verse. There's 2 verses that I have for that specific situation. And the first one is James 4:11. Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. So in a sense, you're sinning by judging others.
Yeah.
We need to encourage each other. And this goes into the next verse. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. That's 1 Thessalonians 5:11. And by the way, that is written by Paul. And if you guys don't know, Paul is a person who crucified Christians. Could you imagine if God didn't use Paul just because of his past? Paul is a major contributor to the Bible that we use. The Bible that person who judged another person used in a way to, like, say, oh, well, I'm better, or how can we do this? Because, the Bibles would look at her as a sinful person. You get me? The same Bible that was written or helped being written by Paul, who was a crucifier a crucifier, a murderer of Christians, is being used by God. So who's to say?
Yeah, so who are we to, like, judge who God uses, right? If you look at the Bible, God he takes broken vessels and he raises
all
them
the
up
time
to display his glory.
All the time.
Right? And
consistent.
And because of that, we should show grace to people who are in leadership and people who serve in the church. And because we want also that grace if we're in that position as well. But we also can't forget that there's guidance, that God gives us guidance on how the leaders should be, who the leaders should be. Like, when it comes to specifically, like, let's say when it comes to pastors, a man of one wife, he should be faithful to his wife. He should be a man without blame, like, blameless. He shouldn't be a scandalous guy. And when it comes to, like, choosing a leader in a church, especially like a pastor, that's important, because that's a representation of your congregation, and that's a representation of not only your congregation, but who the leadership above him, what they value and what they care about.
Right. Yeah. Wait, did you guys want to add something? Because I'm about to close up this statement. No?
I think it was pretty
okay. All right.
I think it was summed up pretty good.
All right. So I just want to add something, and I think this is a great way to close this, because it's kind of like, in a sense, advice. So this viewer commented, people find it easier to speak to non-Christians because they won't feel judged. That's actually very common, because, like you were saying, people that are not Christian, they don't have to worry about it. Right? They don't have to care. It's not a struggle to them, because to them it's just living. Right?
Yeah.
But then they say, but in reality, they're just venting because they won't receive any spiritual advice or a solution of the weight that comes from the Bible.
Yeah.
That can be.
Some Christians often need redirection to Jesus.
Yeah.
And this is to say, this is the importance of seeking other Christians to confide in, because they will redirect you, right? But we also have to allow that redirection. We can't get butthurt. We can't get sensitive, right?
Yeah. Or, like, one thing I heard is the Holy Spirit will correct me, but it's like, bro, like,
no,
like,
this is why God allows us to congregate and be encouraged by others.
Exactly.
You get me? Because we allow correction within people on this earth. You get me?
Yeah. We're supposed to be able to receive that correction and accept it because
Yes.
there are other Christians. They also have the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
They guide you as well. Like, you know what I mean? That's
So whoever is actually struggling in this, and I know that I have, because I've been in positions where I felt betrayed, where people have literally talked behind my back, and I've had to just bite my tongue and just let it pass.
Those are the worst ones.
You get me? And although you know that they're talking behind your back, you kind of just have to let it go, right? Because you have to understand that nobody's perfect. But it's important either way to find yourself in a position where you can have a conversation with another Christian and say, hey, you know, what do you think about this? It's kind of like an accountability partner, you know, and I have that with several different Christians today.
Really good.
Today, though, only today, because back then, I want to say 2 years ago, I would say, no, I don't even want to talk to anybody. The only person I need is my wife, and that's why God blessed me with her, right? But there's an importance in females seeking female advice and males seeking male advice,
Right.
because there's different perspectives. You know, coming from a man, if a guy were to go to a girl and try to get advice, you might not get that aggression that you truly need.
Right. You get like a watered
Right.
watered down
more,
version.
No, I think it would be like what you said, a little bit more graceful.
Yeah, or nice, or like
Yeah,
girls really care about preserving.
But
their
guys
feelings.
need to
guys
get,
do not
Nah,
care.
bro,
No, guys sometimes need to get punched in their face with something.
Yo, I was literally about to say that.
You know, and whereas a girl, if girls are seeking a guy's advice, that guy might be too harsh, and then you might get hurt by that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's important to find someone in your circle, and sometimes, you know, within your gender.
Yeah.
You know.
I wanted to add something. I was on my phone and there was a scripture playing over my head, and it said It's Proverbs 27. It's hold on, I forget which translation I want though. And I'm doing NLT, but it says wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. And you know, with that, we're talking about with correction and things like that, having friends, you know, being there to correct us. If we're not willing to receive, how are we going to receive that correction? Of course. And then number two,
it's not going to bless you in any way.
Yeah, it's not. I lost my point.
No. I understand, but I know where you were going with it, because if you're getting kissed by the enemy, you get me? You're not going to be blessed by it, although it might feel nice. Yeah. You know, you're seeking advice from, let's say, somebody that's not of the faith, and somebody that's just going to, like, let's say, oh, yo, like, you know, like, I just want to punch this person. Yeah, bro, like, you should just do it. Yo, you should just do it. Like, I'll help you. Let's
like
do this
yes
together.
Man. Like
Right.
They just back
You get me?
up.
You might get backed up by this person. You might feel like, oh, yeah, they're my homie. They got me. Right? But at the end of the day, they're not truly helping you as a Christian.
Right.
You're not being blessed by that in any way.
Yeah. And
Whereas another Christian, you might not get what you want to actually receive at that moment, but you're going to look down the line and say, dang, yo, like, thank God I have you as a friend.
Yeah, like if you look at the verse, wounds from a sincere friend.
Yeah.
So sometimes receiving that correction can hurt.
Yeah.
You know? But those wounds are going to heal when you grow and you move past and you really take in that correction and you
It's very true.
grow from it, you know?
Yeah, and so to close off this statement, I just want to read a comment from one of the viewers. They said, I'm closed off about feelings in general. I'm not for the judgment. My response to that would be, make sure that it's actual judgment that you're not for, or, you know, you have to determine whether that's judgment or it's correction. You understand? Because like we were talking about, we have to allow correction into our life. But sometimes that correction might look like judgment, but really that person's trying to help you out.
Yeah.
So,
Not pleasant. Correction is never pleasant.
yeah, correction is never pleasant, you know.
Yeah.
But you, if you're gonna close off even correction, then everything's gonna look like judgment. But you're never gonna allow yourself to grow.
I think it's because of the way that someone speaks to you.
Yeah.
Tone is so important.
That is true.
Because
That is true.
a lot of people who are Christian or whatever, and someone else who's Christian, and this just goes beyond anything, person to person, whatever, you're Christian or not. The tone of a person matters when you talk to somebody. Body movements, eye contact matters.
Yeah.
Because if it's genuine correction, I feel like that will be expressed within your face and with your body.
Yeah.
If it's judgment, you'll see them coming like a snake. you'll see them come in like they have intentions
Yeah.
to do more than what they
How
are there to do.
This? How about this? In my mind, I was going towards that as well, like how someone's speaking, and sometimes not everyone's a great communicator, so they could be trying to really provide you with biblical correction, but you take it as judgment, and in that moment, they could really be trying to help you, you know?
Right.
But because they lack the ability to communicate properly, it just doesn't come off the right way. So we have to also have patience, and maybe what we initially hear is like sets a red flag.
Yeah, maybe we have to
But-
sink in it for a little bit.
Or we ask them more questions like, okay, like, can you elaborate? Can you let me know, like, what exactly do you mean? Like, just like have a conversation. We don't always have to be so hostile or defensive about everything.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
I always feel like this. If it's true correction, then it's coming from God. You will definitely feel some type of peace.
But
Yeah.
you don't always. No.
No, I think you I see where he's coming from.
I agree.
Because it's like
to an extent.
it's like it might not be right in the instant.
Exactly.
Because you might take it as like a sour thing to hear.
Okay.
But
I would agree
later
with
on,
that.
you'll be like,
I'm not saying that you feel it in the moment.
I feel like
Okay,
I feel
okay.
like the
Right.
spirit
I thought that's
will
what you
start
were
working in
saying.
you.
Yeah.
I feel like the
Exactly.
spirit
Yeah,
will start working in
But
you.
if that
And it's-
word meant something, it's a seed that's meant to grow
right,
into
exactly,
peace. You know what I mean?
exactly,
So-
and that's where I was going.
Yeah.
In that moment, it might not be because all you're taking it is for face value, and it's like, bro, like how could you say something like that? But then God has such a beautiful way of doing things, but He will start working in you,
Yeah.
and
And
then it will start giving you that sense of
Yeah.
peace.
Like,
Somebody said sometimes you're limited to your own church, and they're not always cute. Okay, like
Hey.
like that's why Christianity
I
makes
think
it
that's
difficult.
valid, bro.
So the way a Christian girl dresses matters.
Yes. Yeah, man.
I have muscles, and because I just come off attractive,
Right.
and somebody still stumbles because they find me attractive and they lustfully want me,
Right.
right? Is it still my fault?
No.
I would say to an extent, yes.